So hello goblins and adventurers. When you're out in the field adventuring with your friend on your table, we usually think a lot about some elements, right? We think about, hunting, gathering, maybe dungeoning. But there's other stuff that will affect your adventures, that do so in real life so much. And I would say that it's weather. What we have created for Battle for Diratia, but is applicable to any system as usual, is a way to make your temperature move naturally and create interesting temperature where will make survival harder, but will also make your adventure more interesting and more realistic.
We'll go through our weather system, show you how it can affect your game and how it can make your game more interesting, even if you're not using BFD as a system. Each day, during your role-playing game, what you're going to do is simple. Just take 2 BFD dice. Well, these are custom dice, so if you're not playing BFD, you're probably not going to have that. So just take 2d6, and you're going to roll this, and the results are going to tell you how to affect the weather in your day. So here I rolled a +3. So simply I go on the weather score and I add 3, and that's the current weather score, and that tells me what the weather is like and how it affects your adventurers and everything around them.
So if you're at 3, like you are at this moment on this magnificent table, you would be at a clear sky, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What that means is just that there's nothing happening. Once you started rolling your dice every day, the score will go up or down on this table. So if you go up on the table, you can go from clear sky to scattered cloud. So at this point, it's harder to get higher on the table because the weather modifier, when you re-throw the dice the next day, are at -1. So climbing up the ladder is really hard, but it happens, Yeah. This is why it's hard to get a hurricane, tornado, or flooding, or huge high storm, but it can happen sometimes. But it's not just surprising. It can happen by surprise, as we said, with our dice system, it's pretty rare. It can happen that you will have an extremely hot day, and then at 12 during the day, it starts a huge flooding that just floods everything, but it's really, really hard to get there. So it will move up and down the scale pretty much every day, creating a pretty natural ecosystem. And usually if it goes up to a hurricane or flooding that destroy a big part of the economy, well, it's going to take some time. But it will happen if you do 360 days with this system. It might happen if you do, 2-3 years. Well, at this point, there's more chance of it happening.
After rolling what the weather is for the day, you also might want to know when the change is going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's why we suggest rolling a d12 and simply doubling the score to tell you when the change is going to happen.
If you have a clear day and you just, go up to light drizzle, well, if you roll 10, well, it means that at 8 p.m. you change it to drizzles. So, it's really close to an actual weather forecast.
Yeah.
So it's just, you do your weather forecast. You could do it for a whole week adventuring, especially if your players, will travel for long distances.
During each day, there are some changes. In combat, it might affect how the combat goes. So if we look at the weather in combat table, you can see that most of these changes affect mainly vehicles. But some of these changes might affect also people on the ground. So let's say you roll your d12, and let's say we roll 3. Well, the terrain is now covered in heavy fog for 1 turn.
And also you have another interesting roll, which is 10, which I think is really important, where you re-roll the daily weather. So even the daily weather can change during a combat, which is really interesting. And there's also the angle in which the wind blows, which is really important for
wind-powered vehicles.
Yes.
If you have a sailing ship, normally you want to go with the wind and not against the wind.
Yeah, exactly. Adventuring isn't just about killing monsters, it's also about fighting the elements. You know, if it's raining and you don't have any kit to keep your gear dry, well, you could get disease, you could get cold, and this is something that has always affected war a lot. There's a lot of fight in history that have been won or lost because of the temperature.
Let's just give Agincourt as an example. A famous battle of the 100 Years' War, which rained before the day before, making all of the terrain muddy, so making it rough terrain instead of regular terrain. So making it more difficult for the knights to get to the English archers.
If there's a big storm, a good example, if we think modern war, the insurgency war in Aceh was stopped by a tsunami, which is in this system possible, where you could have 90% of the GDP just completely destroyed. If you get 90% of your GDP destroyed, you're not going to get a lot of insurgency war, because you won't have the capacity to fight these kind of guerrilla style war. So whether you go to a classic, type of scenarios, or you can even go to modern, it's still applicable and it's important to use it. There's a term for it, which is geo-int, which means geographical intelligence, which is super important. Even today, it's still used as you're going to try to predict what's going to be the weather to be able to say, well, maybe we should attack while it's raining so we'll be more covered.
Another example, D-Day.
Yes.
D-Day was pushed back multiple times because of the weather.
Yes.
They needed favorable weather to land on the Normandy beaches.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that can affect your game quite a lot depending on how you use it.
Whether it's survival or wargaming or even role-playing, you're not going to travel in the same amount of time if there's a huge flood. I'm just saying, traversing a country that is ruined by floods is not going to take the same amount of day as traveling on a clear day.
I'm sure you'll like this system, so you can go and try it out. We invite you to get Battle for Diratia. You can get it on Drive-Thru-RPG or Wargaming Vault. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you in the next adventure.